Hi guys, Rachel Holt for Nesson.com. It's Thursday, September 8th. Welcome to our Fantasy Football Podcast. It's also the day the NFL regular season kicks off. There's a lot of happy people in America. One of them is Adam Rank of NFL Media, who joins us today. Adam, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I would actually say it's a little bit of a bittersweet day.
Why is that?
Well, football is back, which I enjoy. But I'm not going to enjoy Peyton Manning getting a Super Bowl ring. I mean, I have the displeasure of being in the stadium watching that, and now it gives those Manning fanboys some ammunition to be like, see, he's got 2 rings to Brady's. You're like, stop it. He has no rings. He benefited from Rex Grossman and his Broncos defense last year. New England, Tom Brady won 4 rings. There's no doubt that he's the GOAT. But I'm sorry. I don't want to feel like I'm pandering.
You're already getting people's heartbeats going this early, and people are already angry, throwing their phones.
They're already mad. I know. I'm sorry. I don't mean to do that. I'm on your guys' side on this. When history is written, I will be writing it on the good guy's side. So don't worry.
Well, they appreciate that listening in. First off, you're a busy guy. You have a new fantasy show. It's called Fantasy and Friends that made its debut. You get cool guys on the show, too. I saw you were talking to Matt Forte the other day. Tell us a little bit about the show.
Yeah, it's a really cool concept. It's called Fantasy and Friends. It has Maurice Jones-Drew, Dave Damashek, and Aaron Coscarelli, and all of you. You know, that's the one thing about this show and I don't think that we're reinventing the wheel or anything, but we're taking all the elements of like radio and other things and just kind of combining it. We're doing like Skype callers because Matt Forte, as you mentioned, joined us on Skype. People can send in snaps. Obviously, you can use Twitter and Facebook. And we're going old school, too, and taking calls, which has actually been a lot of fun. And all 4 of us, I should say, have a history in radio. So we all know that having callers is sometimes the best thing. So it's been a lot of fun. Hope everybody checks it out. We'll be on Friday, 6 o'clock your time on the NFL Network. And if you get a chance, give us a call. We would love to have anybody listening to this podcast call in and join the show and talk some fantasy football.
I mean, you already were a big deal before the show, but you're not going to turn into some diva and stop answering our phone calls, are you?
How dare you? I've been a diva for years. That's one thing you need to know. Like it didn't take this new TV show for me to become a diva. I've long told the people here, you don't make eye contact with me. If you see me in the commissary, like if I speak to you, it's fine, but even then, just nod your head and move on. That's usually the way that I operate here. So I guess it's not making me worse, but I wasn't great to begin with.
I respect that. The first thing I would do, I would pull a diva move. I would stop answering my mom's phone calls. I'd be ruthless. But no, it is a big deal. We're excited to watch it. So now that everyone's left and they've gone to NFL.com to find it, which you can do, it is online too. Let's talk fantasy football for those that are left. Everyone's drafted their teams. We're all locked in. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. First, as you mentioned, the Broncos are looking a little different this year. They're going to play last year's Panthers in the Super Bowl rematch, and they're playing tonight. What are you expecting out of this rematch?
You know, I expect the Panthers to be a little motivated. And I know it's kind of a funny thing to say, like, how did somebody not get motivated for the Super Bowl? But I think that the Panthers ran into a situation that they just had never been in before. You know, it's one of those things. You're obviously motivated for the Super Bowl, but unless you're actually in it, it's really tough to kind of comprehend everything that goes into it. And I think now that the Panthers have a little bit more experience, they're not going to be caught off guard Thursday night against the Broncos. They're going to know what to expect, and I think that they're going to be able to go out there and really put it on the Broncos. I think that they'll avenge themselves. I think Cam Newton's going to have a good game, and I know a lot of people have been like, should I bench Cam Newton for Dak Prescott? And I'm like, you guys don't do that. Don't stick with your guy. If you drafted him, obviously you had to draft him in probably the 3rd round, perhaps the 4th, or maybe you were playing in a hipster league where everybody waits on a quarterback and you got him in the 5th, but you spent a high draft pick on him. So you go ahead and play him. So I wouldn't even have any concerns about that. But I think the biggest question, of course, is what's going to happen to the Broncos on their side of the football. And everybody sees Trevor Siemian as the starting quarterback, and they panic a little bit, and it's understandable. But let's be honest here. The quarterback play that the Broncos got last season was not very good. Like, Peyton Manning looked like one of those blow-up balloons that you see at a car dealership that just kind of drifts in the wind, and his balls just were floating in the air. He didn't have any zip on any of his passes, and he just wasn't a good quarterback. And even when Brock Osweiler came in, he wasn't very good either. Even though he got that huge payday from the Texans, he wasn't necessarily a great quarterback. So I think what happens here is Trevor Siemian's going to be coming in and asked to do something very similar. And what that means is he's going to get the ball to Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas in short bursts. And last season, even though that the quarterback play was awful, and even though it looked like it was a down year for both guys, Emmanuel Sanders was the wide receiver 12. Emmanuel Sanders was the wide receiver 18. Demaryius Thomas was the wide receiver 12. And the reason why is because the volume of targets. DT had 177 targets last season, and when you get that many targets, it's almost impossible not to be a top 20 fantasy wide receiver. So I figured they're going to get the ball to him a lot. He's going to be fine. He was probably a third-round draft pick for a lot of you, so feel comfortable playing him. I think tonight people will be pleasantly surprised, but you shouldn't be because the targets are going to be there.
Okay, yeah, a lot of people looking at this game to answer some of their questions they've had. For you, what are some of the most intriguing storylines of the 2016 season? I'm talking, what are your biggest fantasy questions at this point, and who will you be watching closely at the start of the season?
I think over the last couple of years, we've seen people go to the wide receiver heavy draft strategy. It was a revolutionary thing by Sean Spiegel back in 2013, where the whole notion of not going with the running back in the first round was so foreign, but now it seems pretty commonplace. And I think in most of our drafts, you see that a lot of people will go with the wide receivers. The question is, who are the running backs who are going to emerge? And it's going to be those mid to late round guys who are going to end up coming through. And one guy who I think the most intriguing person for me, and I say this because he's on a ton of my leagues, is Latavius Murray, is because he's a player who, when watching him, I don't really necessarily like his running style. If I was judging him just by the tape, I would be less enthused by him, but I think the Raiders did a very good job of rebuilding an offensive line, turning that into a strength. And I think outside of the Dallas Cowboys, they might have the best offensive line in football. So you look at a situation right now where Latavius Murray, I mean, he should be able to get 1,400 yards over a 16-game season or 16-game season, 17 weeks, of course. So he's interesting to me. Derrick Henry is also intriguing to me because one thing that you look at the NFL is that over the last couple of years, teams have evolved, and you see these linemen and these players who become lighter. And I know that the Cardinals drafted Buchanan out of Washington State, and he was a safety in college who they're using at linebacker. And if you saw what the Panthers did to them in the playoffs, they were like, all right, fine, we're going to run straight at this guy. So with all the light dudes playing defensive end, I think Barkevious Mingo is playing defensive end at like 210 pounds or something, is that teams like the Titans are going to start running at people, and we could see the running backs kind of take a step forward for those teams that are willing to give it to a banger like Derrick Henry and letting him just go out and do his thing.
Okay, while we're on the subject of running backs, I asked this question strictly for personal gain because after Jamal Charles...
This is what we should do.
I know, I'm not worried about anyone else. I'm just worried about my teams. After Jamal Charles was declared not ready to go for week 1, like a lot of people, I drafted Spencer Ware to my team. Is he ready to go? Do you think he'll shine this week?
I think Spencer Ware was ready to step up this season regardless of what was going to happen with Jamal Charles or not. I think that when you look over Jamal Charles' career, he's somebody who does very well in between the 20s. He's not somebody who needs a lot of goal line carries to be an effective back. He's usually like a big home run hitter, so to speak, if I can use a baseball metaphor. And we saw it a couple of years ago where he probably won. Anybody who had Jamal Charles in 2014, remember him in that huge game against the Raiders where he was taking the Alex Smith dump offs and going wild. And and taking those 50, 60 yards for a touchdown. I think he had like 35 points that game. I think Alex Smith had a huge game, but it just shows that like he's a big strike guy. He's not necessarily a goal line plunger. Matt Forte is similar in that respect too. But I think Spencer Ware was going to have a role on this team because he's so good as a bruising running back. There's nobody better than him in yards after contact. He averages close to 4 yards after contact, which is an amazing number. And this preseason, we also saw him establish a little bit of a wrinkle where he was catching the ball out of the backfield. And if Spencer Ware can add that facet to his game, he's going to end up being a very valuable fantasy commodity, similar to the way Chuck Sims operates in Tampa Bay, where he's their third down back, but he was still a top 25 running back just because of the volume of targets. So I think that if you spend a draft pick on Spencer Ware, and I saw him go off the board in the 5th round in a draft on Tuesday night. I know it was me. Well, it was me because the dude just kept snaking all of my players, and I knew that he had Jamal Charles, and I was sitting there at the turn, and I'm like, I'm just going to take Spencer Ware now. I know it'll end up haunting me at some point, but I'm like, whatever I'm doing, because I'm spiteful that way.
Yeah, same. So you drafted Ware in the 5th, and then you get Gostkowski in the 6th, like you've been saying?
Listen, the Gostkowski thing was a one league. It was a one-time thing, and of course, it's that league's mostly for pride, so who cares? But you know what's funny is like I've noticed Gostkowski is obviously not the 5th round, but flying off the board. Like people are like they're into him because he's a consistent player, and there's really just so much volatility at the kicking position that it makes sense to dive in. And it depends, too, like how sharp people are. But again, a lot of people have their drafts already completed. If not, kudos to you. I think a Thursday night draft would be fun, like during the game, but
yeah,
that's another story for, wouldn't it be like we should get together, like people should get together and have drafts on Thursday afternoon before the game. We should have this day off, first of all. Let's move Labor Day to Thursday. Because I'll go to work. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll go to work Monday. That's fine. I don't care. And it would probably be better because there's no traffic. I'm going to take Thursday off, and then, we're all going to call in on Friday anyway. So let's just make it a 4-day weekend and do it that way.
Over at NFL, I don't know if that would fly with someone in your position, but for the rest of us, maybe.
Well, for us, we're hardworking individuals having to go out and do all this for our great listeners and readers and everybody. So we're making the sacrifice of working, but everybody else should have Thursday and Friday off.
Thank you. Putting it all out on the line for us. Adam, any individual players you think might shine this week besides Spencer Ware?
You know what? I really love the pass catchers for the Detroit Lions this week. The Indianapolis Colts have lost seemingly all of their cornerbacks. They're signing guys off the street. So that Detroit game to me is one that stands out as like, I want everybody I can possibly have from both sides of the ball, because obviously without the cornerback, that means great things for Golden Tate, who I'm not necessarily a huge fan of Golden Tate. I kind of like Marvin Jones a little bit better, but both of those guys are excellent plays this week. Matthew Stafford is going to be an excellent, like Matthew Stafford could easily throw for 4 touchdowns this week against that team, but it also helps the Colts. And I know, it seems funny, but if this game evolves into a shootout to where the Lions are scoring on seemingly every possession, then that means the Colts are going to have to answer them, which means good things for T.Y. Hilton, Dante Moncrief, who a lot of people have been talking up this entire offseason. I know our own Matt Harmon, who is the author of the Reception Perception, he's really high on Dante Moncrief, so I have him in a bunch of leagues. So I'm looking forward to that game being a high-scoring deal, and that's one that I'm really keeping an eye on. That's the one, like outside of the Bears game. That'll be the one I always keep sneaking back to and watching and keeping tabs on.
Well, obviously, really important to look at who a team is playing when you're deciding, whether or not to put a player in. So on the other side of that, are there
who's your pick to click? Like, do you have, how many leagues do you play in? So I want to know, you've got to have a pick to click outside of Spencer Ware.
Well, I mean, I'm in 3 leagues this year, so kind of like you, I'm spread out, and I was making decisions based on, I don't even know. 3 leagues is a little too much for me. So
Is it?
I'm going to be watching every game not knowing who to root for. Guys on different sides of the field, rooting for this guy in one league, rooting for this guy in the other league. I don't know. Three's a little too much for me.
I got you. Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I helped establish a little thing I like to call the League of Record, where all over one, like however many leagues you're in, and I'm in 10. Wait, 9. I don't even know. I'm losing track. I'm losing track of my leagues, much less the players. Is that you have a League of Record. Now, I play in a league with my buddies who I grew up with, and that's the one I care about the most. And the players in that league are the ones that they're the only ones I care about. And like you, because obviously you have a League of Record. There's one league that you care about the most, and it's
yes.
the one that had Spencer Ware. That's why you asked me the Spencer Ware question.
You nailed it. You know why? Because my boyfriend is in that league, and
perfect.
he must go down.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So you see, we all have that. So Spencer Ware is obvious. I think both of us are in the same boat with Spencer Ware, because I got to start him in multiple leagues, even the ones. So even if you're in a league where you're going against Spencer Ware, you still know, like, okay, well, I still need him to score in this league, and that's what's important. So I get it. Every once in a while, you get a case where you can shoot the moon. And there was a Dolphins running back on Monday night a couple of years ago. Oh, my gosh, I cannot think of his name. And it was during the Ricky Williams era, and it was the other guy who ran with him. I apologize for not remembering his name, but I needed, like, 21 points. It was a crazy thing, like, okay, I need him to score at least 18, but not more than 24, and I'll win both games that I was in. And it actually happened, and I call that shooting the moon. And that's only happened once in my life. And it was one of the greatest moments of my life, outside of, driving around a traffic jam on the 405 in California, which is a big deal. You guys have traffic out there. You know what I'm talking about.
It's terrible.
It's awful, right? So if you ever miss a traffic jam, you're like, great day. Like, I don't know what else happened, but I go, you know what? I was able to avoid that traffic jam, and it was a wonderful thing. So we all look for that. So Spencer Ware, all those guys. So yes, I'm sorry, I'm taking us off topic. I'll try. I'll focus. I'm back in. I'm
locked in. This is an important question too, and I think it applies to some other people as well this time around. So Survivor leagues. This is my first time doing a Survivor league as well, which is where you pick one team to win each week, and if they don't win that game, you're out. So it's stressful, and it's harder than it sounds because you can't pick that team again for the rest of the season. Have you ever done one of these?
This is our first time we're being allowed to do it, because the NFL, they get a little, there's some rules and regulations, and we want to maintain, I should say, our integrity. But this is going to be a product. I think we're offering it that you could, because we now have pick pools on our NFL.com site, but I think we also have the Survivor-based games, because I know for Fantasy and Friends we were able to do this, and they asked us to pick a team. So I've definitely got a team. I've got a way I'm going on this one.
Nice. That'd be a terrible way to get fired, is you're in a Survivor league just thinking you're having fun, and then, But we were talking in the Nessa newsroom about this yesterday, and we were debating the strategy. I know a lot of people are in these leagues. We're thinking you go safe in week 1, you see how the teams do, and then down the road you can make bolder choices. Is this kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I know because my wife has done these previously, and her strategy was always to go with the most obvious pick first. And even though she's like, look, this league might not even last a month. Like, why, worry yourself about 9 weeks from now when you can just worry about winning now? And always kind of like, trying to, like, don't be afraid to take some of the safer picks, the things that seem easy. And then, if you somehow make it to week 10 and you've used up the Patriots and all the other good teams in the league. It's so funny, because I was just trying to think, like, who are the Patriots are the only team that come to mind. And again, not pandering, but it's like, yeah, they're going to be good. Like, I just know, like, they're like, every team has a question mark, and I guess even the Patriots do, but even when the Patriots have question marks, they're still good. So I'm like, okay, yeah, so like the Patriots are good, and then like, yeah, I don't know. Like the other 31 teams could go 1-15, and it would be like, yeah, it's not a shock. Maybe not 1-15, but 4-12, and be like, yeah, that's the NFL. But yeah, I don't mind taking an obvious game, and I don't think the Patriots one this week is obvious at all. I mean, they're going against the Cardinals, but I think if there's a safe pick or a team that you're really confident in, don't play the thing where you're like, well, I want to save them. Like, just pick them. Like, make sure you survive that first week.
So here's some that we highlighted. Dolphins at Seahawks. Seems like Seahawks are a lock.
Yes.
Packers at Jaguars. Seems like Packers are a lock.
No. My friends down in Duval County, Florida.
Yeah.
Oh, they're gonna shock the world.
That's good to know. Bills at Ravens. Ravens?
Oh man, listen. I like the Bills on that side.
Okay.
Because this is it's a revenge game for Tyrod Taylor, who is of course a former Ravens quarterback. We give the Ravens the benefit of the doubt because they draft so well and they're such a great organization. But did they really fix everything? Is everything up to stuff? Plus, I'm still mad at Mark Trestman for what he did in Chicago. And really, it's not his fault. I blame the McCaskey family you had Bruce Arians right there. Like you saw what Bruce Arians could do as a head coach. A lot of times when you're hiring coordinators, you don't know how it's going to translate as a coach. But Bruce Arians was actually a head coach. Like he coached the Colts. So you knew that he was good at what he does. And you were like, nah, we're good. We're going to go with this guy from the CFL. He was the offensive coordinator for the Raiders at one point. So, how do you turn down those credentials over the reigning coach of the year? But I digress.
I can tell you're a guy that holds grudges. You told us this, but I can tell. All right. Well, that's all we have. So I'm going to
Wait. Take the Chiefs.
Chiefs?
At home against the Chargers. It's an early game. It's a 10 a.m. West Coast game. So that means San Diego's got to travel and play in the morning to them. The Chargers did not get their first-round draft pick into camp until, yesterday? No, a couple of days ago. He hasn't even practiced in pads, so he's going to be worthless. That defense is struggling still. The offensive line has a lot of holes. They've never figured out a replacement for Nick Hardwick. And the Chiefs, but Andy Reid, he's always one of those coaches, too, that, always has his team prepared. I think it was for the longest time, he was undefeated coming off the bye week, and then he always has something going into week one. I remember when he was the coach of the Eagles, and they were playing in Dallas, and it was a real hot summer and everything, and he had his team drink pickle juice the night before, so none of those guys would get dehydrated. He opened the game with an onside kick. He's amazing in week one. So Andy Reid and the Chiefs are your pick to click. And if you don't, then make sure you pick them after the bye week. But Andy Reid's going to have that team ready to go. And the Chiefs is the easiest win of week one.
Okay, well, now we're really hoping that Spencer Ware has a breakout game here because there's a lot riding on the Chiefs and this team to do well now.
Yes. Yeah, I'm doubling down all over the place.
Okay, I like it. A confident man. All right, that's all we have for you this week, Adam. Thank you. Where can we find more from you?
Rachel, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity and everybody for indulging us here. You can check us out. Please, check out Fantasy and Friends tomorrow, Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern, 2:12 on DirecTV. I don't know what the other channels are. Just give it a shot. You can, if you don't like it, you don't like it. It's cool. And then we shake hands and we part as friends. But give it a shot. It's a fun show. And if you get a chance to call in, it's 888-555-FRIENDS. Call in and, mention this podcast. No, but call in, be involved, send tweets, do all that stuff. You can hit me up on Twitter at Adam Rank or Facebook.com/Adam Rank. Those are always the easiest places to find me. Or you can call me if you have my number, but I don't think any of you do. So other than that, I think that's, if you have it, call if you can figure it out. But that's it. That's all I got. But thank you again. This is always a distinct pleasure of mine.
The pleasure's all ours, Adam. Thank you again. Adam Rank, NFL.